Thank you. Thank you. Because I only have 10 minutes to provide an industry perspective, I'm going to hew pretty closely to my notes, so don't leave anything out. I'm delighted to be asked by Quest Diagnostics to moderate this excellent panel during the Lunch and Learn event. I love healthcare data. I love healthcare workflow. And by industry perspective, by industry, we know what that means. It's the industry that we work in every day. But what is a perspective? It's an attitude, a point of view, a standpoint, a slant, an approach, an interpretation. And another synonym is even stand. My perspective is that of an industrial engineer who went to medical school and also got a degree in artificial intelligence along the way. You can think of industrial engineering, now sometimes called systems engineering, as an academic degree in workflow. We describe workflows. We model workflows. Increasingly, workflow engines execute these models of workflow, just as computers execute models, programs to create executable behavior. Although, when a workflow is executed by a workflow engine, it occurs at a more understandable level of abstraction. The four most important qualities of data-driven workflow are actionability, transparency, flexibility, and improvability. When I look at workflow and workflow technology in healthcare, I look for these four things. I'll focus on actionability, since that is the title of today's Lunch and Learn. The dictionary defines actionable as having practical value. How appropriate. Healthcare abounds in data. Data everywhere, but often not actionable, I think. In fact, if you think about it, data should trigger workflow if it is to have practical value. Data that does not do this has potential value, but it is merely a potential. Practical value does not come into existence until data actually triggers action. As an industrial engineer, I prefer to think of action as workflow for a variety of reasons. But the most important reason is that descriptions of workflow can be used to communicate, to measure resource consumption, and achieve goals. In our case, the goals are improved outcomes, reduced costs, and more satisfied patients and clinicians. For the last 4 years, I've been what is called a HIMSS social media ambassador. So I wear these ties like HIMSS workflow, hashtag. I think the reason that I became an ambassador is because every year since 2011, I have searched every single website of every single HIMSS exhibitor for workflow-related material. It's semi-automated now. Then I tweeted about it. In fact, that's where this hashtag originated. I searched exhibitor websites to understand the state of the healthcare industry regarding healthcare workflow. In 2011, there was very little about workflow on any HIMSS exhibitor website. Today, almost half of HIMSS exhibitor websites have some kind of substantial workflow story. We improve your workflow. We fit into your workflow. Seamless and seamlessly are favorite words. Some exhibitors even mention various kinds of workflow technology, such as workflow engines, sometimes called process or orchestration engines. All of this is great. However, what is it that triggers workflow? Data. But not just any data. It has to be actionable data. It has to be the right data which comes into existence at just the right time and within the view of some agent, human or automated, which can take an initiative and trigger a workflow. This is the relationship between actionable data and workflow. But what about integrated workflows? When a workflow occurs in my organization, but depends on activities occurring outside of my organization, perhaps in and around the patient, perhaps down the road in the clinical laboratory, or perhaps in your organization, how are my and your workflows to be knitted together into a seamless whole? Here, let me describe a different but related perspective. Besides my many degrees, already mentioned, industrial engineering, medicine, I'm also what's called all but dissertation in computational linguistics. ABD stands for all but dissertation. It means I did not finish my thesis, but I took 20 courses in linguistics and computer science. Why do I bring up linguistics? The two most important healthcare data interoperability concepts and words are syntax and semantics, both of which are drawn from linguistics, the theoretical study of human language and communication. If you work in healthcare interoperability, you will often hear the phrases syntactic interoperability and semantic interoperability. Syntax concerns the hierarchical shape of words and sentences. Think back to sentence diagramming in high school, if they do that anymore. Syntactic interoperability is about the hierarchical shape of messages. These shapes have to be the same across systems. If my message generator is to be successful in sending a message to your message parser. Semantics concerns the meaning of words and sentences. Do they mean approximately the same thing in your and my brain? Semantic interoperability requires that the codes exchanged between health IT systems refer to the same thing. Code 123 must refer to disease XYZ in both the sending and receiving systems. However, there is a third but largely ignored area of linguistics, at least within the healthcare interoperability community, that is ignored. This area is called pragmatics. How do you and I use language to accomplish common goals? Correspondingly, there is, quote, pragmatic interoperability. Google it, didn't make it up. The ability of two IT systems to work together to achieve common goals. Syntactic, semantic, and pragmatic interoperability are like legs of a three-legged stool. Much of healthcare interoperability is missing that third leg, pragmatic interoperability, which brings me back to actionable data. To me, in my view, given my perspective on workflow and data, actionable data is about adding the third leg to complete this three-legged interoperability stool. Actionable data is the data that kicks off the workflows that makes our investment in the data worthwhile. While I am using language, just as I am using language in an attempt to achieve our common goals of participating in a successful lunch and learn, healthcare organizations are using actionable data to participate in common goals of achieving better clinical outcomes, reduced costs, and more satisfied patients, clinicians, and supporting personnel. Okay, thank you for indulging my foray into linguistic theory. I'd like to think those several years might pay off someday. More specifically, I think there are several key points to be made and acknowledged. Like it or not, the EHR is the key point of data, convergence, contact, and command. I was a Navy brat. My dad served on a sub. When I was CMIO at an EHR vendor, I thought of the EHR as the aircraft carrier and a carrier group of hundreds of other ships and planes and submarines. Data and workflow was spread across complex and sophisticated command and control systems. However, the carrier, that is the EHR, remains preeminent. Nonetheless, physicians are getting tired of EHRs. They are tired of burdensome administrative and reporting requirements. They are tired of clicking, and more clicking. They even have a name for this disease. It's called clickaria. Really, Google it after diarrhea. They'd rather spend their time actually talking to actual patients. What is the solution? Actionable data and integrated workflow are important parts of any solution to clickaria. Don't show me the data unless it is relevant to my next important clinical action. In order for this to be true, the right data has to flow to the right place and person and be presented in the right way. And in order for this to be true, we need more than mere data interoperability. We need true workflow interoperability. This is actionable data. It makes life easier, not harder, for physicians. I've enjoyed several conversations on phone with our panelists, Lydia Fonseca, SVP and CIO for Quest Diagnostics, and Ken Mandel from Harvard Medical School and Boston Children's. And now I look forward to their presentations and discussion and subsequent audience participation. Thank you very much.